Good evening and welcome to another edition of The Advocate with Albert Abkarian, where we talk to different politicians, sports figures, and personalities. Thank you again for joining us tonight. We have a great guest, Councilmember Paula Devine. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure having you here, first of all. You've been a great friend of the Armenian community, and having someone like you here to just kind of get some perspective as to what's going on in the city is a great idea. So thank you for coming in.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
Councilmember Devine, could you tell me, we always ask our guests to go back to where they were born and give us a little bit of background, where they work, where they went to school, just so the viewers will know, where you've been and where you're going. So tell us a little bit about your background.
All right. Well, I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and was raised actually in West Virginia, and graduated from the West Virginia University and went on with my teaching career. And I taught in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, and I just kind of knew that wasn't where I belonged. And so I came out to California in the 70s, and as soon as I got off the plane, I knew that this was where I was supposed to be. So I looked for a teaching position here in California and was fortunate enough to find one in the Alhambra School District, San Gabriel High School. And I spent, in my career, over 30 years teaching. I do have a master's degree in education administration. And as I say, I eventually married my wonderful husband, Art. And
well, I don't know about Art, but
no, he's a good guy.
I'm just
I know. But anyway, I taught for all of those years. I was a coach. I was an athletic director, the first girls athletic director under Title IX. Worked with a lot of coaches in this very area, in the Glendale area, on the passage of that bill. And retired eventually, and got involved in the community. And eventually one of the council members came to me and said, you should be on a commission. And I said, okay. And he said, well, which one would you like to be on? And I said, well, let's see. He said, well, how about Parks and Rec? And I said, no, I've had enough of Parks and Rec, thank you, although I value it very much. But I said, no, I would like to be on the Women's Commission, because I had some ideas. And it was, kind of in a position where it was, here and there and everywhere. So he said, fine. So he appointed me, and I served 8 years on that commission, 3 as chair, and I think 1 or 2 as vice chair, and just felt like I accomplished so much with my colleagues on the commission. I mean, we really, there were, Nairi Nahabidian was on it when I was there, and we've gone on to serve our community. And eventually it came to pass. Actually, the first month I was appointed to the commission, I was at a luncheon, and Senator Liu was at the same luncheon, and I don't know how, by happenstance, I was sitting next to her. And so I introduced myself, and we were chatting, and she said, oh, you're on a commission? I said, yes. And she said, well, when are you going to run for council? And I said, oh, well, that's never going to happen. She said, oh, but we get some of our best council members from our commissions. I said, no, I don't see that in my future. And of course, all of that went up in smoke about 4 years ago.
Larry Zarian told me one time, the person that says never is the person that you need to go and talk to always.
Right, well,
so anyways,
there it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah, so that's kind of the way.
You've been in council now for?
4 years.
4 years.
4 years. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about what, going back to initially when you went to council, and now that you've been in council for 4 years, what is the difference that you see? What did you think before, and what do you know now?
Well,
that's different.
In the beginning, when you're campaigning and when you start running for an office, there is a learning curve. And so when I was initiated into that learning curve, it was pretty steep. But I did my homework then, and I'm still doing my homework. When I was during I'd say the first year and a half, it was much more difficult to prepare. and to make the decisions that I felt were right, because I just was so set on making the right decisions. After the first, I'd say, 2 years, I'm more comfortable now. Someone told me when I was first elected, they said, "Paula, you're going to change." And I thought, what does she mean by change? And I said, no, I'm not going to change. And I just posed that to her the other day. I said, now, I haven't changed, have I? And she said, you've gotten thicker skin, and you're able to stand up for what you feel is right. And I think that's how I've grown, and that's, I think, what happens. But the learning curve is still there. You know, you never stop learning. There are so many meetings, so many other commissions and authorities that you have to participate in. So a council person is always learning.
Yeah, the incredible connection that you need to create between 5 different minds, 5 different backgrounds, and come to one conclusion is so difficult that a council member has to be a mediator more so than you know, I'm not saying you're not a leader, but you better have a mediation background. If not, you're not going to get anything done.
Right, and you know, that's one thing that I've always enjoyed in all of my public service, and even when I was teaching, was the fact that it's really important to be able to collaborate and come to a decision or connect the right people with the right project or decision. But I think what's most important with council members, or I guess anyone that's in a leadership position with others, is the fact that you have to agree to disagree and walk away and still be able to look at each other and be friends, be colleagues, and work together, just to agree to disagree.
Yeah, I remember when Ginger Bremberg and Larry Zarian and Sheldon Baker used to scream and yell at each other, and then the same night you'll find them at Jack's eating dinner together, which is something that really needs to happen, where people don't take anything personally.
Yes.
And they basically take different opinions as different opinions.
Right.
And don't take it personally.
I agree. I totally agree.
I'll have a small portion now. We have a little bit of time before we go on a break. I want to talk about the Glendale taxes. I'm an anti-tax person, as you know. Anytime somebody says taxes to me, my foot keeps jumping up, saying no, no, no. Prior to getting started, you gave me some explanation that made a lot of sense. Could you please tell us a little bit about the taxes and tell me a little bit about why we need to vote for these taxes?
Sure. This is a measure that's coming up on the November ballot, and you know, I am dedicated to fiscal responsibility, and I am not a tax person either, and I wouldn't recommend a tax unless I could see a really good reason for it. This particular one is called the Quality of Life and Essential Services Protection Measure. That's a long name. I kind of am calling it the protection measure, and what it's doing is is to raise our sales tax from 9.5 to 10.25 percent or cents. It would only mean 7.5 cents on the dollar for our residents. Most of it would be paid for by people coming into our community that are shopping here. However, the important part about this tax is the fact that it will ensure that this money stays, this 9.5 cents or 7.5 cents stays in our community. It doesn't. The county cannot take it away, and they are in line right now. There's a county ballot measure ready to go. There's an AQMD ballot measure ready to go to take our 0.275% tax and use it for the county. And this ballot measure will ensure that it's that money, that $30 million, stays in our community for public services, for quality of life services. And I think that's really important. Let's stop giving our money to to Long Beach, to Santa Monica, who are at the cap right now. Burbank is passing this tax. Pasadena is passing this, they're putting this on the ballot. So it behooves us, Glendale residents, to vote for this small tax to ensure that that $30 million stays right here in our community and isn't shared by any other city in our community, in our county.
Let's go on a quick break and come back and just touch on this a little bit more,
Okay.
because I think it's important for people to know what's a cap
Okay.
and why we need to pass
Alrighty,
this. So
sounds
let's
good.
go on a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back again with the Advocate with Albert Abkarian. We're here with Councilmember Paula Devine. Councilmember, could you explain to me, I don't understand, or maybe the viewers won't understand what a cap is. Does that mean, what is a cap? Why is it important for that ballot, for this ballot?
Well, currently we have a 10.25 cap on our sales tax percentage on our.
You can't go higher than that.
Cannot go higher. So now the city is at 9.5. So with 0.75 added to that, we will get to the cap. Now, if we were at the cap and the county decides to put a ballot measure on the on the ballot, or decides AQMD decides to put something on the ballot, we would not have to pay. Our funds would not go into those measures. However, we would receive a portion of it, just like Long Beach. We passed Measure H in Glendale. We contribute to Measure H $10 million. Our residents give $10 million to Measure H funding. We are recouping $300,000.
That's crazy.
That has to stop. And the way to stop it is to pass this ballot measure so that we reach the cap, and if any other ballot measures come along that want to raise or to initiate more taxes, we don't have to pay them.
Well, that's good. You've kind of convinced me. I'm still have to do some more reading on it, but I'm a whole lot more convinced than I was prior to me and you meeting here today. As you know, you said you want to talk about taxes. I said no taxes in my show. But you know, that's a very good idea, that the cap of 10.25 would be the cap. And if we don't do it, the county then will do a 75-cent cap, take the money, and we get just a residual, small residual from that cap. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And if you don't get it now, we'll talk later. But I hope all the viewers get it, and they'll be in support of this ballot measure, quality of life and essential services protection measure.
Seems to be a good tax.
Yeah.
If there was ever a good tax, this is one that's actually helpful and
That's
good.
for sure.
You know, talking about you being the only female in the council, you being the only non-Armenian in the council, gives you a different perspective. Now, I've looked at the council meetings, and I don't think being an Armenian plays a big role into the decision making most of the time, and that most of the time you have Glendalians that are city council members making decisions. How do you see your role in that, in the makeup right now in the city council?
Well, you know, I am sitting there representing the entire community. No matter what faction of the community, I am there for everyone. And I think in my service to the community, I've established a reputation of being fair and thoughtful about all of our community members, all of our residents. I think sitting on council, when I make a decision, and I think when the rest of council, when my colleagues make decisions, we are primarily thinking about the entire community. We don't, you know, that's one of the reasons that we rejected districts, because, you know, we don't want to have representation in little, like, fiefdoms. We are there for everyone. And as a woman, I feel like I bring a different perspective to the city council, maybe a softer, gentler,
A kinder perspective.
gentler, right, perspective to the decisions that we make. I try to be a listener, and I know that I am a listener on all fronts. From all community members. So I think that's my role, is to just kind of keep everyone together, working together, and making sound decisions. And when I make my arguments, I think it behooves me to make sure that I am absolutely speaking for the people that I represent.
Yeah, that's much appreciated. I mean, that's the reason that I was completely against districting. Districting only breaks up the city, doesn't actually unify the city like
Right.
some people claim that it does.
Right,
And if you're a city council member, you are a city council member to every member of this community, going from La Crucena all the way down to South Glendale. And if you district everything, it just takes away that unity that the city has currently. And I said, and I will say it again, anyone who wants to sue Glendale, we should go all the way up to the Supreme Court to actually take that away from them, because
Yeah.
this lawsuits or a possibility of a lawsuit on a city where it has representation is just ridiculous. And
Yeah.
I as a citizen say, spend whatever money. I'm even willing to pass the
Well,
tax.
not all that.
The 30 million spent on it just to make sure that this doesn't happen in the city of Glendale.
Well, and that's the other good thing about this tax, Albert, is the fact that we're going to have it as a line item so that the city council can actually determine exactly where that money is used. A lot of people say, oh, you're going to put it towards pensions, and that's not true. We're making it a line item so that if we need roads or more police or whatever services we need, we'll be able to do that. It won't kind of go to lawsuits or
anything else. Right. Put another spin. What's the most difficult thing that you had to deal with in the past 4 years? I know it's a curveball. I mean,
wow.
but just a fastball. But I know personalities are difficult. I know department heads. You have to deal with department heads, city manager, which I think for the first time in a very long time. We have a police chief that's probably one of the best I've seen. We have a city manager, Jasmine, that is probably one of the best city managers I've seen. And we have a department heads that are all very focused. And so tell me a little bit about that.
Well, that's the easiest part. The staff at the city are fabulous. Everyone is fantastic. The council members, I am the only woman. They have been very, very nice to me. They're always respectful and kind. So I appreciate that. It's easier for me to say what were the easiest decisions I've ever made, and one was the chief of police, Carl Povolitis, and the second one was just recently in the museum, the Armenian American Museum and Cultural Center. That was so easy. Yeah. It may not have looked that way on TV, but I knew from the beginning, like was 2 or 3 years ago when I spoke with the people that were involved in that project, that it was absolutely a fantastic project for the city. So those were the two easiest. There have been difficult ones. A lot of times it's neighborhood issues.
Yeah.
Neighbor versus neighbor. Those are always difficult. Yeah. Then you get, I think the ARTSOC issue was a little difficult for me because I really wanted to see a compromise there. But, I'm happy that, I was all for there being an ARTSOC and there being some recognition of the wonderful Armenian community that we have in our city, because I have great admiration and respect for them. So I was all for that. I just was, it was just difficult in the way it came about, and I was kind of on the I've always been a supporter of small business, so right. That was kind of difficult, right. But it all worked out.
Well, we're running out of time, and there's so
Wow.
much more to discuss. But I will promise you, we'll have you back in here to discuss more items. Thank you very much for
Oh,
joining us.
it's been
We
a
really
pleasure.
appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again very soon with a new guest, and we want to thank Paula Devine for joining us tonight. Thank you and good night.